Joining us now, former Principal Deputy Administrator of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, and co-host of the Scientista podcast, Monica Medina. Monica, thanks so much for being here this morning.
Good morning.
It's just devastating to know that those little girls were in those cabins, and if there had just been a siren at 1 o'clock in the morning when that alert went out at 1:14, that it was in fact an emergency, that their lives might have been saved. What do you take as you listen to all the stories, the data, and everything you know about the way our weather works?
First of all, I just want to say how heartbreaking this is for any parent to imagine this kind of a horrible thing happening to their child. And I hope that this will mean that the president will stop mocking climate change as an existential threat, because for those 100 souls, it was an existential threat, and it is an existential threat for Americans all across the country. It's touching everyone. What I take away from this is that it was preventable. There are things that we can do. I know sometimes we feel powerless in the face of climate change, but we know that weather is getting more and more extreme. We know that this particular part of Texas was called Flash Flood Alley. We had the ability to make small changes to be able to prevent something like this. No weather radio. It's something that's available, and you can buy it in stores, and it will warn you in the middle of the night. You don't have to have a siren system if you don't have one in place, and it may take a while before Texas decides to put one in place. But there are things you can do now. We can also stop cutting the Weather Service's budget. Right now, our weather system is stretched to the breaking point. The particular weather office in this location had lost its meteorologist in charge, a hydrologist, the kind of person whose very job it is to predict these kinds of inundation events and to prepare people for them. And we can't replace with AI those personal connections, the people in those communities. This is not some bureaucrat, as the congressman who represents that district called the bureaucrats in Washington in the Weather Service. It was not bureaucrats in Washington. It was local forecasters, the connective tissue with local emergency managers who were being cut. One took an early buyout. Other positions are not being filled. This is crucial at a moment in time when we know these extreme storms are getting worse and worse. And whether it's heat waves or fire or flood or a hurricane, we know we are up against a wall with climate change, and we need to do things to prepare.
And you talked about cutting federal funding. Also, there were some movements in the state. Local taxpayers rejected the idea of paying for a more elaborate warning system. So right now, as I think a lot of communities across this country are looking around, being like, could we be next? What are some immediate steps that the towns, local governments, states could take to try to make something like this safer? I mean, it's not big picture climate change. Those solutions are going to come from higher levels, but just the day to day.
Those local, well, several things. Local officials need to step up their efforts. Clearly, the federal government and the Trump administration is saying, we're not going to take this on anymore. They're cutting FEMA and saying it's on you, states, to make these changes. And they should. Texas is the most flood-prone state in the country. I know that's probably surprising. We think about it as a dry place. But there are hurricanes that will hit the Gulf Coast this summer. Those NOAA weather radios are lifesavers, and they seem like old tech. Yes, I know. But in places where cell phones don't work, in places where perhaps you're not going to get the warning with a lot of time, you need that siren. So local officials can start to build up their preparedness with more first responders in place, with more of that kind of outreach, what we used to call a phone tree in the old days, where you're actually going door to door, helping your neighbors out. Used to be that we had government helping us, federal, state, and local. Now it's going to be on individuals to take actions to protect themselves. Don't expect that someone's going to warn you. If you think you're at risk, do something. You heard one of those first responders say, well, we didn't know whether it was worth it to actually evacuate people. Now we know these storms are so strong, so powerful, so deadly that if you worry that you might be at risk, you might actually want to take action yourself right away. And I think it is on all of us to try to make up for the losses of these federal supports and state and local supports.
And they come so fast. These storms, that flash flooding, it happens like that.
But, you know, in this case, yes, the warning came at 1 o'clock in the morning, but much of that wall of water took a few hours to make its way down the river. And people sat and thought, we used to think about this with tornadoes. How much time in advance do you need? People had time to wonder, should I evacuate? Now they need to just evacuate. That's the situation we're in. And people who have the ability to purchase weather services that, you know, on their phones, businesses may be able to be warned, but individuals, and particularly those who are vulnerable, need to act.
Part of the appeal of those camps is that there are no phones. For parents,
Right.
anyway, you get to have a summer without technology, and it
But the
costs sometimes.
The camp administrators had phones.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
had the ability. People are making choices now that are impacting our lives. And we need to take action. We need to let our politicians know at every level we expect them to put these systems back in place, to restore the funding, not cut it. And we need to be on alert ourselves and take action matters into our own hands. Otherwise, we are sitting ducks.
Former Deputy Administrator of NOAA, Monica Medina. Monica, thanks for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Still ahead on